We bought a beach cottage with our own money, then my parents claimed it was theirs and took us to court. Hi, I'm Nathan, 35, and I never thought the people I called mom and dad would one day try to legally rob us. While sitting on our couch, eating the croissants we bought with the money they were suing us for, it all started with a brunch. I swear, if I had a time machine, I wouldn't go back to stop some world catastrophe. I'd go back to that damned brunch and accidentally spill mimosas all over my parents before they opened their mouths. We were sitting on the sun-drenched patio of the Vineyard Club, the kind of place where the butter has a garnish. Kelsey and I were grinning like idiots because we'd just put in an offer on a beach cottage. Our beach cottage. It needed work, but it was ours. She was practically vibrating with excitement when I mentioned it to my parents. We found a place on the coast, I said. It's beautiful. 2 bedrooms, oceanfront, a wraparound porch. We're planning to renovate it ourselves. My mom's smile froze mid-lift. A vacation property? Isn't that rather premature? Premature. That was Linda code for, I don't approve, and now I'm going to spend the next 45 minutes trying to talk you out of it without actually saying that. We've run the numbers, Kelsey said. It's not just a getaway, it's a smart investment. High rental potential in the summer. My dad leaned back like he was about to lecture a room full of interns. You know, rental properties come with risk, maintenance, damage, liability. You'd be smarter to diversify your portfolio instead. We're happy with our plan, I said. We're not looking to flip it. It's for us. What followed was the most passive-aggressive post-Eggs Benedict in family history. But we bought it anyway. We spent every spare weekend fixing it up, refinishing floors, redoing the bathroom, eating soggy takeout on lawn chairs because we didn't have furniture yet. It was exhausting and amazing. That cottage felt like freedom, until my parents started circling it like buzzards who thought they had dibs on a beach corpse. A tea first, it was subtle. Oh, that ocean air must be good for your father's blood pressure, my mom mused during a call. Then came, we'll be down next weekend. Not, could we? Just, we will. We caved once. Big mistake. They arrived with bags, opinions, and zero gratitude. My mom wandered around the cottage pointing out flaws like a disgruntled real estate agent. Only 1 bathroom? She sniffed. This furniture is very casual. We had spent the whole time second-guessing our renovations. You did this yourselves? You should have hired professionals. This could tank resale value. We're not planning to sell, Dad. Plans change. When they left, Kelsey sat down on the porch steps and just breathed. Do you think they see us as adults at all? She asked. No, I said. But I really hoped we were past this. We weren't. Things got worse after the engagement. We told them over dinner at a nice Italian place. Claire, my sister, cried happy tears. My parents? You'd think I announced I was marrying a chainsaw. My mom blinked twice. Engaged? Yes, I said. We wanted to tell you in person. Silence. Then my dad cleared his throat and asked, what about a prenup? A what? A prenuptial agreement, he said, like I was a moron for not thinking of it first. You both have assets. You need to protect yourselves. I'm not marrying an embezzler, Dad. I'm marrying Kelsey. Kelsey sat there, silent, her fork motionless mid-air. I could feel her disappointment radiating like heat. And still, we tried to include them. We invited them into the planning process. But it was like giving dynamite to toddlers. My mom tried to hijack everything from the guest list to the flowers to the color of the table linens. My dad started referring to our cottage as a shared family asset. That was the first time I used the word no in a sentence longer than 5 words. But it wouldn't be the last. The wedding happened despite them. It was beautiful, intimate, a garden ceremony with twinkle lights, soft jazz, and only 60 guests. My mom sulked through most of it because there were no networking opportunities. My dad's toast sounded like an accounting lecture on asset consolidation. Still, we were happy. Newly married. The cottage was finally done. Weekends became rituals: coffee on the porch, beach walks, falling asleep to the sound of waves. And just when we thought maybe, things had settled, they escalated. It started with the phone call. Kelsey and I were at the cottage unpacking groceries when my mom's voice filled the speaker. Your father and I will use the beach house next weekend. Not, can we? Not, would it be okay? Just will. Kelsey gave me a look. I knew that look. It meant you better handle this before I do. Next weekend doesn't work for us, I said. There was a pause. Then, you already had your turn. It's only fair we use it now. Family shares. It took everything in me not to laugh. This wasn't a toy. It was a 6-figure investment. My wife and I bought, renovated, and maintained alone. But to my parents, it had somehow become the family cottage. We let them use it once more, against our better judgment. When we returned, it looked different. Furniture rearranged. Our personal photos were gone, replaced with generic coastal prints. The closets had been rifled through. The radio stations reprogrammed. Did they redecorate? Kelsey asked, her voice tight. Apparently, yes. My mom claimed she'd fix the flow. My dad said the kitchen layout needed a more strategic utensil distribution. That's when we drew a line. And no more unsupervised visits. We tried to move on, but the calls kept coming. My mom had told relatives they could reserve weekends at the cottage. One cousin even showed up uninvited with a duffel bag, saying Linda told her it was fine. It wasn't. And then the final insult arrived wrapped in legal paper. One Tuesday morning, Kelsey opened the door to a process server. We were being sued by my own parents for 25% ownership of our cottage. Their argument? That the financial support they'd given me over my life birthday gifts, college help, a truck down payment entitled them to a quarter stake in any major marital asset. They were trying to retroactively invoice me for being their son. I called them immediately, put them on speaker. Kelsey sat beside me, silent but seething. You sued us? I asked. It's not personal, my mom said breezily. That beach house should belong to the family. You have zero legal right. We have a moral one, she snapped. We invested in your future. You owe us this. Kelsey stood up, voice cold. Get out of our lives. You're not family. You're trespassers with a grudge. But they didn't leave. Not yet. They used a spare key to let themselves into our home when we were at work, sat in our living room with their lawsuit spread across the coffee table. That was the moment everything changed. I walked into our house after a long shift at the hospital and froze. Linda was sitting on our couch like she owned the place. Robert stood by the fireplace, flipping through our photo album. A folder of legal documents lay open on the coffee table like a grotesque centerpiece. I didn't even put down my bag. What the hell are you doing in our house? Linda looked up with a practiced smile. We used the spare key. Thought we could talk like adults. You broke in, Kelsey snapped, stepping out from the hallway. This isn't a family meeting. It's trespassing. Robert didn't flinch. We're trying to avoid unnecessary court drama. But if you insist, give us the key, I said. You're being emotional, Linda replied, folding her hands like this was a TED Talk on betrayal. We're protecting our investment. Your what? Every dollar we gave you, Robert said. Every holiday check. Every meal we paid for. That truck we helped you buy in college. It all adds up. We've tracked it. You tracked your birthday gifts? Kelsey's voice cracked in disbelief. Of course, Linda said. Responsible parents keep records, and then sue their son over them. I asked. We didn't raise you to hoard, Robert said flatly. You owe the family. You've lost your minds, I muttered, walking over to the coffee table. Their lawsuit included spreadsheets. Dates, amounts, interest accrued. I felt nauseous. You see, that cottage is yours, Linda said. We see it as the family's legacy. Think about Claire. Don't you want your sister to have a stake in something real? Kelsey stepped forward. You're using her now? Robert didn't even blink. She's part of the family too. She's not a bargaining chip, I said. You should have planned for this, Linda hissed, her mask finally cracking. Your father and I built the foundation of your success. You gave me $500 for books and a truck down payment. That's not a foundation, that's parenting. Or at least it used to be. Linda stood, rage bubbling under her pearls. We gave you everything, and you repay us with arrogance and exclusion. You think you're better than your own family? No, I said. But we built that cottage with our hands. We built a life without your strings attached. Kelsey crossed her arms. Get out. Or what? Robert challenged. I'll call the police, I said, dead calm. Robert scoffed. You'd call the cops on your own parents? I'd call them on anyone who breaks into my house to steal what isn't theirs. They left, eventually. but not without one last jab. Think about how this looks, Linda said at the door. People talk. Let them, Kelsey said. We're done hiding your dysfunction behind polite brunches. That night, we didn't sleep. We sat in the kitchen, hands wrapped around lukewarm mugs of tea, staring at the lawsuit. Not just angry, not just hurt, shattered. They weren't just trying to take our house. They were trying to take us. We lawyered up the next morning. Our attorney, Michelle, was sharp, calm, and had the kind of laugh that said she'd eaten families like mine for breakfast. After reviewing the lawsuit, she looked up and said, "This is ridiculous. But make no mistake, they're serious. The legal theory? That my parents passed gifts to me, help with the used truck, a few tuition checks, birthday cards with checks for 100 constituted investments that entitled them to 25% equity in any major marital asset, including, apparently, Beach Cottage. This isn't just frivolous," Michelle said. "It's delusional. But they've filed, and we have to respond." Kelsey looked down at the table, visibly holding back tears. "They planned this for years," Michelle nodded grimly. "They've kept records. Every holiday gift, every dinner, every dollar your dad spent on gas when he drove you to college once. They had spreadsheets, color-coded, with interest calculations. My parents had literally turned my childhood into a ledger." We fought back hard. We filed a motion to dismiss. Michelle submitted our full purchase records for the cottage mortgage paperwork, down payment receipts, bank transfers from our personal accounts, every Home Depot receipt we had. We also submitted text messages, emails, and calendar invites showing my parents had never contributed a single dime, but they kept doubling down. They demanded discovery. They wanted our tax returns, joint bank account history, our wedding invoices. They claimed the money they'd spent on my undergrad allowed me to marry someone attractive and upwardly like Kelsey. When Michelle read that line aloud, Kelsey nearly laughed through her rage. "They're treating me like a dividend," she said. "Like I'm a return on their investment." Michelle nodded. "Their case won't hold up. But they're not trying to win, not really. They're trying to drain you, financially, emotionally, and it was working." My sleep evaporated. Kelsey had near-daily migraines. I started snapping at residents during rounds at the hospital. She stopped working on her research projects. Every ding of the email brought a fresh dose of nausea. Then came the depositions. Kelsey and I sat across from my parents in a beige law office conference room that smelled like stress and old upholstery. A court reporter typed every word as Linda, in a pale cardigan, explained why she'd kept a spreadsheet of every Christmas present since 1997. "Do you consider these gifts or loans?" Michelle asked. "There's no difference when it's family," Linda said. Like that made perfect sense. "And what do you believe you're entitled to now?" "A return," she said. "Like we were a stock option," Robert chimed in. "Parents invest time and money. We sacrificed. Now, it's our turn." Michelle looked at them like they were a science experiment she was documenting for court. "And you believe that justifies breaking into your son's home and attempting to coerce him into signing over property?" "We were asserting our rights," Robert said flatly. "They didn't get it. They couldn't get it, because to them, I wasn't a person. I was a failed asset acquisition." After the deposition, Kelsey and I sat in the parking garage for a full hour, just breathing. "You okay?" I asked her. She stared ahead. "They don't love you," she whispered. "Not really. They own you. Or they think they do." And that's when I knew we had to win. Just the lawsuit. The whole war. The judge didn't laugh. We hoped he would. We needed him to. But instead, he frowned as he shuffled through the stack of documents, holding up one of my parents' spreadsheets like it was a cursed artifact. "Let me clarify," he said, adjusting his glasses. "You gave your son birthday gifts, assistance with the truck over a decade ago, and helped with some educational expenses. You now claim that entitles you to 25% ownership in property he purchased after marriage with his own income?" Robert straightened like a CEO pitching a hostile takeover. "We invested in his success. The cottage is part of that return," Linda chimed in, smooth as poison tea. "We only want what's fair. We didn't raise Nathan to be selfish." The judge blinked. "Once, twice. This court does not recognize parental affection as an investment vehicle," he said slowly. "Gifts are not contracts. You may feel morally entitled to their property. Legally, you are not. He paused, scanning the room. This case is frivolous. It is dismissed with prejudice. And given the egregious nature of this action, I'm ordering the plaintiffs, Mr. and Mrs. Chamberlain, to cover all legal fees incurred by the defendants. We won, but I didn't feel victorious. Not really. Watching my parents quietly collect their papers while the judge exited the courtroom felt like mourning something that had already died months ago. Outside, in the cold brightness of the courthouse steps, Kelsey exhaled so sharply, it sounded like she was trying to breathe for the first time in weeks. They're going to spin this, she said, and they did. Within days, the family gossip mill started churning. Relatives we hadn't spoken to in years were suddenly texting us, just to check in. Claire, my sister, pulled me aside during dinner a week later. Furious. They're telling everyone you stole the family home, she said. They're painting you like some gold-digging couple who locked your parents out of their legacy. They tried to steal our lives, Kelsey muttered. Let them cry about the cottage. But Claire didn't back off. They're saying you manipulated the court, that you brainwashed me. You stood up for us, I reminded her. That's not brainwashing. That's basic decency. No, she said quietly. And it's why I'm moving to Seattle. What? I can't do this anymore, Claire said. The lies. The entitlement. They're calling me a traitor. And I'm tired of pretending we're a family when all they care about is control. We hugged her goodbye 3 weeks later. She left behind a note on our kitchen counter. Thank you for fighting back. Thank you for choosing each other over their toxicity. I want that kind of life too. Meanwhile, Robert and Linda paid the price. Literally, the judge's order left them bleeding financially. Covering both sets of legal fees meant Robert had to postpone retirement. Linda sold her Lexus and bought a second-hand Honda Civic, which she referred to bitterly as a punishment vehicle. Their friends, the ones from their polished little charity circles, read the court filings. And when they did, the calls stopped coming. Their reputation crumbled like a day-old croissant. They'd gambled everything: money, family, respect on a lawsuit so absurd it had become a running joke in 3 different law firms. But they hadn't hit bottom yet. That came later, with the letters. The first letter arrived in a cream-colored envelope, sealed with the kind of formal flourish you'd expect from a wedding invitation. The irony wasn't lost on us. Inside was a 4-page essay from Linda, written in blue ink so neat it could have passed for a font. It opened with, "Families make mistakes." Then came a meandering apology that never used the word sorry once. "We only wanted what was best. We feared you were isolating yourselves. We feared Kelsey was pulling you away. If we overstepped, it came from a place of love." I read it twice. Kelsey read it once and threw it in the trash. 3 days later, an email followed, this time from Robert. Subject: let's start over. No salutation. No acknowledgement of the lawsuit. Just, life is short. We're all family at the end of the day. Can we move forward? Attached was a photo of them smiling at a charity gala, as if to remind us of the polished image they once held. We didn't respond. 2 weeks after that, they showed up at the hospital. Kelsey spotted them first, sitting in the waiting area with a bouquet of flowers and that familiar look of entitled optimism, the same one I'd seen before every ambush disguised as a visit. I walked right past them. "Nathan," Linda called out. "Please." I turned, looked her straight in the eyes. "You sued your own son," I said, loud enough for the reception nurse to hear. "Live with it." And then I walked into the elevator. The letters kept coming, handwritten, typed, some rambling, some begging. One was a guilt bomb that ended with, "Think of Claire. Think of your future children. Do you want them to grow up without grandparents?" Kelsey read that one aloud and said, "I'd rather they grow up with none than ones who sue over Christmas money and call it equity." And still, we didn't reply. We had rebuilt the cottage, the kitchen, our life. But the trust? That was one structure they'd burned to the ground. And we were done giving them blueprints to rebuild it. They didn't stop. Linda tried one last Hail Mary, a carefully curated Facebook post. All pastel backgrounds and sanctimonious grief. Sometimes children forget who raised them. Sometimes a mother's love is twisted into something ugly. But we forgive anyway, because that's what real family does. The comments were what you'd expect. "Stay strong, Linda. You're such a good mom. Kids these days have no loyalty." Praying for reconciliation. It was nauseating. Kelsey refused to engage. Let them talk, she said. The people who matter know the truth. And they did. Because court documents had a funny way of traveling, one of Robert's former golf buddies, someone we'd never even met, sent me a LinkedIn message. Hey, just wanted to say, that was brutal. Can't believe they did that to you. Total respect for how you handled it. Word got out. Not because we spread it, but because their behavior spoke louder than any spin. More relatives reached out privately. Quiet apologies. Awkward sympathy. One cousin sent a text that just read, I always thought your mom was intense. I didn't know she was. That, their world shrank. Robert's retirement party was cancelled. No one arvped. Linda's charity board quietly phased her out. And through it all, they kept sending letters. The final one came on a Thursday. A single page. Typed. No greeting. No sign off. You've made your point. We hope one day you remember that we were only trying to protect what's ours. I held the letter for a long time, then set it down. They still think it's theirs, I said. Kelsey nodded. Of course, they do. Because they've never built anything of their own. That weekend, we sat on the porch of our cottage, wrapped in blankets, sipping wine as the ocean cracked against the rocks. We didn't talk about them. We didn't need to. They had already sued their way out of our lives. And we were finally, blessedly, alone. It's been a year since the lawsuit. 12 months of peace that feel like a miracle compared to the chaos that came before it. The cottage is more than just a retreat now. It's home. We painted the front door sea glass green, planted lemon trees along the path, and strung soft lights across the porch. At night, it glows like something sacred. Claire visits sometimes. She brings fresh bread from Seattle, stories from her architecture firm, and absolutely zero mention of our parents. We lie on the porch, watching stars blink to life above the water, and joke about what we'll name our future dog. She calls the guest room her wing. Linda and Robert, still silent, or at least, finally silent, after their final letter, the one that basically screamed, "You're dead to us," in Times New Roman, they disappeared. No calls, no visits, no more breaking into our house like emotionally bankrupt burglars. Their last shred of leverage had been their presence. And when that didn't work, they vanished into the echo chamber of their own self-pity. We heard through Claire that they tried couples counseling, but it didn't take. Apparently, Robert blames Linda for pushing the lawsuit. Linda blames Robert for executing it poorly. They're not divorced. But they're not together either. Just two people orbiting their resentment in separate rooms of a too-big house. And us? We're thriving. Kelsey's research just got a national grant. I'm up for chief resident next cycle. And we've started talking, quietly, about kids. About the kind of parents we want to be, not just in contrast to mine, but on our own terms. One rule we both agree on. Love is never alone. We won't raise our kids to be grateful investments. We'll raise them to be free. Sometimes, I still see the box of legal papers in the closet. The lawsuit. The depositions. The spreadsheet that tried to turn my life into a balance sheet. I thought I'd burn them, but I haven't. Not out of sentiment, but as a reminder of what not to become, of what we survived, of the quiet, powerful truth that some people will trade everything real for a sliver of control and call it love. We didn't let them, and now, finally, we're living the life they tried to steal. Together. Free. Home.